Hello and welcome back to Math and Tea, the show where we talk math and drink tea. I'm your host, Professor Joseph Van High. Now, this summer I've been talking a lot about books that I've been reading recently, and this time I thought I would share with you a book that has been a favorite of mine for a long time. And that book is Flatland, A Romance of Many Dimensions by Edwin Abbott Abbott. This is the annotated edition with additional notes and commentary provided by Ian Stewart. Flatland has a lot of sequels, or quasi-sequels, written by other authors, including Sphereland by Dionys Burger and Flatterland by Ian Stewart again. I'll talk more about them later. The main character of Flatland is A Square. No, I mean, that's actually his name. First initial A, last name Square. It's also an apt description of him being a four-sided quadrilateral. He's a two-dimensional being living in a two-dimensional world where everyone is a shape, and the more sides you have, the higher you are in society, with circles or sufficiently circle-like beings living at the very top. The first part of the book is really just telling us about Flatland and what life is like in only two dimensions. Now, the original book was published in the 1880s, so it's got a very Jules Verne or perhaps even Gulliver's Travels type of feel to it. After this introduction, which really accounts for the first half of the book, our hero, A Square, is visited by a strange and mysterious being, a being of three dimensions, named, of course, A Sphere. In the rest of the book, A Sphere tries to convince A Square that three dimensions can actually exist. And once he is convinced of it, A Square then turns around and tries to convince A Sphere that four dimensions are actually possible. That's where most of the mathematical content of this book comes from. It's a scientific allegory to help we, the readers, conceptualize what four-dimensional space looks like. A Square is trying to understand the third dimension, something which to us is obvious, but Abbott makes it really clear why someone who has only ever existed in two dimensions would have such a hard time conceiving of a third. So as A Square comes to understand this mysterious third dimension, it helps us understand the mysterious fourth dimension. The book, however, isn't all math. As I said, the first part of the book is about Flatland and just what life in Flatland is like. And there's a surprising amount of social commentary and satire to go on with this. Now, mind you, he did publish this in the 1880s, so most of that commentary is a bit out of date. Nonetheless, it does serve a useful purpose. It makes the book more than just an intellectual exercise. You can tell when Abbott is poking fun at things, and even though the humor is almost a century and a half old, it still works well enough to make the book entertaining. The original Flatland is a well-deserved classic. It's science fiction of a really unique bent, and it can help teach the reader something new. The original version of the book is also pretty short, and it's in the public domain. So if you're looking for a quick read, head on over to Project Gutenberg and download it for yourself. If you want something a bit more substantial, grab the annotated edition. However, there is also the sequels to consider. Sphereland by Dionys Burger is basically a direct sequel to Flatland. It even follows the adventures of A Square's grandson, who is of course named A Hexagon. Where Flatland was an allegory to help teach us about higher dimensions, Sphereland is an allegory to teach us about things like curved spaces and an expanding universe. And yes, you can tell it's a different book and that it's written by a different person, but it does still feel like a worthy sequel. If you liked Flatland, grab Sphereland because it's just more of the same. Flatterland by Ian Stewart, the commentary guy on the annotated edition, I'm less enthused about. It feels like I just borrowed the conceit of Flatland and basically nothing else. The main character is a Flatlander still, and she goes on a Flatland-like adventure of discovery, but the similarities kind of end there. Stewart goes into a whole bunch of different topics in Flatterland, everything from topology to fractal dimensions to even time travel. It's a lot more intricate math-wise than the original Flatland, but it comes at the expense of being less intricate story-wise. And perhaps because I already knew a bunch of the math by the time I had read it, it just didn't end up feeling nearly as fun as either of the other two. Mind you, I did already know about four-dimensional space by the time I read Flatland, and I still enjoyed that one. However, that's all for now because, wait a second, have you figured out the pun yet? Edwin Abbott Abbott? Abbott squared? A squared? Anyways, that's all for now because I'm out of tea. Bye!